Paulie here on the Latino Slant. Thanks for coming on by and checking out this very special video. If you're not yet subscribed, make sure you are. And if you are, go ahead and tell 100 of your closest family members about the Latino Slant and have them subscribe now. We got the founder and editor-in-chief and writer, one of the writers of Bounding into Comics, John F. Trent, to come on and talk to us. We're going to discuss Bane, Angel Miguel Soto, the director of Blue Beetle, the Blue Beetle hate. You know what? I love these real conversations and representation.
Yeah.
In film and television has been absolutely atrocious in the history of Hollywood in regards to Latino portrayals. And I've documented on my channel for many years now that even today we still will have a Ben Affleck playing a Mexican American in Argo. Those examples still happen. And you don't have to go too far back. It's like, well, when can we play ourselves, John? When can we have those authentic stories of people who happen to be U.S. Latinos and that are amazing stories for everyone to enjoy? When can that happen? Without whether it's a reverse race swap, if that's possible, or something that's just an empty piñata just for Disney to hold up and say, look, we have our Latinx. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my thoughts on representation is that if the character, like, you want to get an actor that looks like the character, right? They don't have to be specific, like this ethnicity has to be this person. I remember the whole like Miss America thing in Doctor Strange. People were upset that it was a Mexican American woman playing Puerto Rican American character. I'm not going to be like super on that. If the actress or actor looks like the character.
It took me a minute because you said Miss America. You're talking about America Chavez.
Yeah, America Chavez. Yeah, right. Like her, she was originally Miss. Yeah, sorry, she was originally like that's America Chavez.
Original.
Yeah. Miss
Correct.
America, yeah.
It was a young Mexican American actress, Xochitl Gomez, who played America Chavez, which they changed from, I guess. She used to Puerto Rican.
She used to be Puerto Rican, and then they made her into like from a alternate dimension.
But technically, she's an alien, though.
They retconned that. She was originally like a Puerto Rican immigrant who grew up in like the Bronx.
Okay, let's go on with your point. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, so my point is that you need to find an actor that looks like the character, and that's kind of where I'm at on any of that stuff. And I'm not gonna I don't know. I'd have to look up who Ben Affleck played in Argo, whether or not he looked like
Tony Ramos.
Like, does he look like him? I don't know.
No,
I'm not.
No,
he doesn't. Okay, well then, yeah, I'd be right there criticizing that. They should have got a guy to play that looks like Tony Ramos instead of Ben Affleck,
right? And it's a double-edged sword because one, I love Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
two, the real Tony Ramos signed off on him playing him.
Yeah, right? Well, sure, but I mean, if you want to talk about. Right, but yes, because at the end of the day, obviously you need a big name guy. Ben Affleck is pretty big. You're gonna get. I think he produced it, directed it too, right? So he's providing the funding. He's doing all that stuff. He's all on board. So and that's a little bit more of a niche film and stuff like that. But if he's again, I would still criticize the fact that because you can point to Robert Kirkman. We just kind of covered this. He race replaced one of his characters from Invincible. From a blonde, blue-eyed white character in the comics to basically a black woman in the animated show on Amazon, and he obviously is approving of that. But I'm still gonna criticize that because he's literally doing it for the quote-unquote representation agenda, the DEI stuff that all these studios have. They self-publish and stuff like that. You get the same thing with what's his name doing it with his I'm gonna blank on it now. He does this. He does his own spin on the Greek mythology. Blanking on it. Rick Riordan is doing it with the new Disney Plus show for his Percy Jackson series that he's doing, where he race swapped a bunch of his characters for the live action show that they're doing. From the novels and everything like that. So you do have people doing this that are actually creators of the characters, and I still criticize them because you created them that way from the beginning. That's how people read them. That's what they were.
Gotcha. Like Neil Gaiman did with Sandman. I know he changed them.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
we criticized him for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the original intention. That's how people kind of view it in their mind's eye, what these characters look like. That's how you might, in some cases, like you drew them that way. So that's how they look like. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that. That's like the principle, I guess, that you want to say. But I'm not going to begrudge the guy. Like, hey, if he approves of it, and he like he's that's his prerogative. But like I said, I would still be like, hey, like get a guy that looks like Tony Ramos.
For me, representation works better if it's let's say it's culture specific, right? And we're on the Latino Slant. If you have that unique story written and directed from Latinos, and it to me, it's just different than, oh, we're gonna make Namor, we're gonna make him indigenous for you guys. Come on, let's do it,
Right? Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what I've been saying, John, these last few years, like with these smaller films that come out, like a Flaming Hot or Encanto or these other ones, guys, make these hits. Please support these films, because the more that these are successful, the less race swapping you will have. I've always said that, because there seems to be some sort of gatekeeping to where there can only be certain types of Latino representation that fall flat, that get canceled, by because no one watches them, and yet the ones that are really gripping, they either ignore or they call them stereotypes. But it's like, well, wait a minute, Latinos did them. Case in point, I want to say would be Narcos Mexico, which I don't know if you've ever seen that television show.
Yeah, Netflix.
Incredible show. It launched a lot of careers. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie and say, hey, I don't believe in representation, but my caveat is really strong, is that the story has got to be authentic. What I'll often get, John, I'll get perceived as a weirdo, where it's like, oh, you don't need to see yourself. It's like, you're right, but when I do, I don't want to see myself as that same freaking stereotype. I'd like to see, if I'm gonna see myself, I'd like to see other portrayals, positive portrayals sometimes, entertaining portrayals sometimes, other than what Hollywood has done for so many decades.
Yeah, I guess I don't view entertainment that way at all. So like if I see a white guy like Victor Zaz or whatever who's a serial killer, I don't like see myself in him or like view that as like what I don't know. I don't look at it like that way, that he's like a representation of all white people or something like that. Even if like I'm watching The Godfather or something like that and I see how they're like depicting Italians as like mafioso or something like that, I don't see that as like all Italians are like that. I don't know. I just don't. That's not how I view it. I can relate to a character like Luke Cage. I look at like how the characters act morally rather than that. And I was like, okay, this is a really good moral character. I really like what the choices that he's making. Like this is a guy that I can relate to because of those choices he made. He's making these good choices. I really like the kind of the first season of Luke Cage with that. And then obviously you see like really good villains that help those heroes make those choices, right? They put those choices to those heroes in like a good story. So I don't know. I just don't view like the characters like that. I don't see, and maybe I'm like misinterpreting what you were saying there, where you see maybe like a Latin or a Hispanic character and you see yourself in that character. I don't see that when I see a white character or an Italian character or
Yeah,
Irish character or anything like that.
Listen, when I say that, I think we're on a certain level, on that human level, the same. And because I did that growing up, Rocky Balboa, Luke Skywalker, Superman, Daniel San, E.T., like that's who I like. That's all I cared about.
Yeah.
you know, um, and it wasn't until I became an older teenager where, in regards to, in the mid 80s in Los Angeles, where I grew up, it just, wasn't a cool thing to be Mexican. We just, I stopped speaking Spanish. My mom stopped speaking it to me. It just was like, we want to blend in, want to assimilate, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
That's not everyone's experience as an American kid. Just saying.
No,
So
it's
for
not.
me, right. So for me, John, because I do not speak for every Latino.
Right. Yeah. I don't speak for every white person, obviously.
Right. Yeah, you don't speak for every comic. Um, for me, when I started getting a little older and getting a little more, self-aware, the Richie Valens obviously was a big deal for me, because I was like, wow, I didn't know about this guy. Who is this guy? What is this music? Was this person for real? And and of course I thought Lou Diamond Phillips was a Mexican for so long.
I thought ZZ Top were black people. There's actually a documentary where a blues bar in like Memphis thought they were black too when they heard their demo tape. They invited them. They're like, who are these white people coming up on stage? It's like, oh, these are the guys from the demo tape. Yeah, they had BB King and everyone, and they thought they had just listened to their demo tape, and there's a documentary that covers it. And I was like, okay, I'm not the only person that thought that.
That's fantastic. I mean, you get that all the time. I'm happy to see these better products coming out, and that's why I am very hopeful for Blue Beetle. Even though you brought up some good points, sir.
Yeah. So I think the bigger issue with Blue Beetle, obviously, I think that Batman is the fascist line turns a lot of people off, because I think Batman is like DC, right? Detective Comics. Batman is like the main one, but I think at the end of the day, Blue Beetle's been hurt by the whole DC gun. Yeah, they hurt themselves by DC by the whole gun announcement in January, saying that all of these movies are basically pointless. The Flash is resetting everything. You don't need to see these. And I think you've seen that at the box office, right? Shazam did 132 million globally. The Flash, I think was going to like the Ezra Miller backlash obviously played into that, but it only did like 230 million. And I think the projections we're seeing is like 27 million, maybe on the low end for the entire domestic gross, like 27 to 55 or something like that. Like, I definitely put that on James Gunn, David Zaslav, Peter Safran, and the people at DC.
And the strike. Because I think what the strike has done is
because you don't have Zolo out there.
Element is
Zolo. Yeah, 100%.
So
Cobra Kai. Yeah,
he's right. He's so likable.
He's doing the rap video and stuff. Yeah,
I had did a video where I was like, this is why the Flash failed, because you can't use their star to promote. And this is why Blue Beetle is going to succeed, because they got Sholo, and then the strike happened.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely think that that's a huge factor too, because he seems to has a lot of charisma. People seem to like him. He's on a very likable Cobra Kai series on Netflix that like tons of people have seen. And he's like, that rap video went viral. They like Warner Brothers like brought him to the Barbie premiere, like clearly trying to use that to get they were
same
like
week it was he was, and
they knew what they were doing. He's going to be a star. He's going to be a star, I think.
I'm hoping for the best, but as my audience knows, I'm always honest with my reviews.
I mean, at worst, I think it's like an Iron Man clone, right? 2008 Iron Man clone with a Peter Parker personality instead of a Tony Stark, right? Or I mean, at best, sorry, like I'm saying that wrong. At worst, it's obviously like a super lecture, and then
we don't want that. John. We can have it's been shown before where representation is done right. You can have whatever is on camera. You can have all of that. Just don't talk down to the audience, and don't alienate, the audience. And if you do, you're that audience will not show up.
Do you have an example in like the last decade of something like that?
Where it's worked?
Yeah.
I mean, Coco, Encanto, Flaming Hot.
That's a live action.
Yeah, I'm using the Latino films. This Fool, Primo. Those are very highly popular shows. Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is multicultural, up and down the cast.
Right. So I would argue that Cobra Kai isn't part of that kind of like representation, narrative, ideology, etc. Because you do still have you didn't race swap.
It's not ideology. It's not ideology.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that would be my argument. Yeah.
There is no argument, because it is also too. That's what LA looks like. You got that's what LA looks like, especially Reseda. I'm like, yeah, they did it right, but they're not talking about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I would differentiate things like Cobra Kai from maybe what you see with like you were talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, where you had Namor like turned into like an indigenous Mexican. or I guess he wasn't even like, I don't know. They created a fictional
They didn't
like,
define the other half.
yeah.
They didn't define who his daddy was, but his mama was a Mayan.
But they made it clear that he was no longer Atlantean, right? Like in the comics. So like that would be where I would differentiate those two things. Where I think the Wakanda Forever was clearly done as from like an ideological perspective, based on this like representation narrative where you like need to represent people, and in order to do that, we're gonna like basically change the characters' background and history and everything like that to make it so that this person is represented on screen. Whereas like in Cobra Kai, they didn't do that, right? You still have what's his name?
Johnny.
Yeah, you still have Johnny, you still have Daniel. They're still there. They're still like main characters. And then you introduce their kids. You introduce Jolo's character as well, who's kind of like the apprentice kind of character, adopted son, basically kind of thing.
Father sons.
Yeah, so that's very different, right? Where instead of you introduced new characters, new people that still respect the old, they respect those movies, they respect all those Karate Kid movies and everything like that. So I think that those are two different things in my opinion, if that makes sense. Whereas like you have like this kind of respect of the source material, embrace of the source material, and then the other one where it's like we're going to change it so we can do, because we want to have this representation narrative. And I think that's where that kind of comes from compared to like we actually embrace
there's
this
no argument there for me, because I'm in total agreement with you, because like I said before, you're putting an agenda of a so-called progressive ideas before your actual story, and that's death, like for entertainment. That just doesn't work.
Kevin Feige has even recognized that. He said that in an interview, I think earlier this year, before all the strikes and stuff like that. He was
before all these failures he had.
Yeah, it was before all this stuff. Like I think it was even before Victoria Alonso was let go and everything like that, or fired or whatever. Whatever the official narrative on that is. But I forget, it was on some podcast he was talking about. He was like, yeah, we like, in order for us to like get our messaging that we think is great and we love, we actually have to like start getting back to like entertain first. And so I think he recognizes that too. And you see like Bob Iger tacitly say that as well, where it's like, we need to curate the content better, which is, to me, is like, yeah, that's code that like you need to like focus on telling good stories rather than trying to push kind of like these like whether it's a representation ideology or some kind of political ideology or other social identity politics ideology.
And I think that there's so many stories out there that that are just dying to be told, in regards to us, some great U.S. Latino stories, some wonderful stories. So why they're not pulling triggers on that, who knows? But they continue to do, like you said, and like I said, the Namors, even National Treasure, where it had that just horrible representation of this young woman who was a DACA. And I'm like, why can't she be a Mexican American who's born here, like me, like what we just talked about?
Yeah.
Like someone who's kind of grew up kind of ashamed of who they were.
So to me, so when I see stuff like that, and obviously I think that when I see like casting is done like that, like I obviously, in my opinion, I've already been like, okay, this whole film is tainted by ideology first.
I really appreciate you, and I love where you guys are always coming from. Again, if you guys haven't, check out Bounding into Comics. They always keep it real. And yeah, man, thank you for your time.
Dude, great conversation. Glad to be here. Hope to come back sometime soon.
Orale pues. We'll see you soon, guys. Wherever you're at, keep your slant fuerte. We'll see you. Bye.